Hey everybody, JCB here at the Awesomest, and you're watching the Awesome List. Hey, remember the 90s? Bill Clinton wasn't a pervert yet. Bill Cosby wasn't a pervert yet. Bill O'Reilly wasn't a pervert yet. I just noticed a trend. There were a lot of Bills in the 90s. There are also a lot of cartoons, and I mean a lot of cartoons. And I would know, I'm a 90s kid. So it's weird to me in this era of reboots and remakes and adaptations and cash grab nostalgia porn that not all of my cartoon favorites from my childhood have been absolutely ruined. I mean, turned into full-blown Hollywood movies. Unless, of course, you count Ninja Turtles, Doug, Power Rangers, SpongeBob, Ghostbusters, Rugrats, South Park, The Simpsons, and many, many others. Alright, so there's been quite a few, but still, it makes me wonder why hasn't every single 90s cartoon been turned into a full-length Hollywood movie? I mean, it's a little late in the game to start having standards now, Hollywood. Anyway, with that said, and without any further ado, here are my top 10 90s cartoons that should be made into full-blown movies. Number 10, Pokemon. Now, I know, I can hear the clack of your keyboards, you're typing in the comment section right now. We already have Pokemon movies. What about Detective Pikachu? I understand. But I think that now is the time for Hollywood to do something truly unique and different with the Pokemon movie. I mean, it's a crazy, bold idea, but hear me out. I think they should try to make a good one. The Pokemon movies we have now are all god-awful. They're basically just episodes of the show with a ton of extra padding thrown in to extend the runtime. They weren't even made in America, let alone Hollywood, so to my straight, cis, white, male American privilege, they're imports at best, meant for Crunchyroll.com and not a night out at the movies. Now granted, in order to do a Pokemon movie to today's standards, you'd probably need to reboot the whole movie series entirely and throw us back in Kanto, Nagasaki, whatever. And back to Generation 1 Pokemon, with Ash Ketchum and Pikachu. Maybe give it a more modern aesthetic, maybe not like Frozen, but that Pixar short Paper Man might be cool. You can go the Detective Pikachu / Lion King live action remakes like Beauty and the Beast, just make it good. You have like 60 Pokemon games to draw content from. Make it not boring and good. I mean, it's not the dumbest thing I've heard of. Number 9, Gummy Bears. No, not that, Get it off my screen. No, I'm talking about Disney's Adventures of the Gummy Bears. The world of the Gummy Bears cartoon show was pretty deep and well established. It's a perfect mixture of fairy tale and medieval fantasy times. The show has evil knights and magic powers and a special juice that makes Gummy Bears bounce and makes humans like super strong, and every episode had a huge epic story that was too big to be contained in a mere 20 minutes. But this is one of those situations where I feel like traditional animation would be the only appropriate way of making this movie. First of all, because these cheap ass, let's throw animated characters into the real world movies need to stop. I'm looking at you, Sonic. But most of all because Gummy Bears was the show that proved to everyone that you can do high quality animation on TV. Disney Afternoon was basically Disney's way of putting every other animation studio to shame in the 90s. And of course, with the new movie, Disney could cheat behind the scenes and use computers to kind of do all the heavy lifting, but still hand animate key frames so that it still looks like that old traditional animation style. That hand-drawn aesthetic is definitely something I miss in a time when every animated film looks like a GameCube game. Number 8, Ren Stimpy. Back in the 90s, Ren Stimpy was the spiciest cartoon show on television. Nowadays we have movies like Sausage Party that make the hijinks of Ren and Stimpy look quaint by comparison. But I think that makes this the perfect time to bring Ren and Stimpy back to their true form. The so-called revival Ren and Stimpy adult party cartoon was a massive flop. Partly because it was missing the magical vocal talents of Billy West, but also because Ren and Stimpy was at its best when it walked right up to that line of what is and isn't allowed on a kid's show, and then just stayed there awkwardly for an uncomfortable amount of time. The adult party cartoon went right past that line and just started playing around in the smut territory. The key to every good joke, no matter who's telling it, is that it's at the expense of somebody. And Ren and Stimpy jokes weren't just at the expense of the characters, they were also at the expense of the network executives, censors, standards and practices people, as well as the viewers themselves, who got stuck in this uncomfortable situation that they were watching on the screen. So the right script that can highlight the absurdity of Ren and Stimpy with the original people involved and the discipline to adhere to a set of self-imposed rules and restrictions for the Ren and Stimpy universe could be a winning combination. Number 7, Bonkers. Bonkers was a show about a bobcat who was a famous cartoon character but lost his job and became a cop. And he solves wacky toon crimes with a grizzled old detective named Lucky. I want to say his name is Lucky. Now, I could be wrong about all of that. I haven't seen this show since the 1990s when it disappeared off of Disney Afternoon. So what you're going to get here is my explanation as I understood it as a child. I always suspected this show began life as a Roger Rabbit cartoon. Like, the premise was, after the movie, Roger joined Eddie's detective agency and they solved crimes together in Toontown. But then maybe due to some hiccup with the whole legal stuff behind Roger Rabbit and Warner Brothers and Disney, they weren't allowed to make the cartoon, so they just scrapped it and rebranded it as like this weird Bobcat thing. Instead of Roger Rabbit, it'd be Bonkers the Bobcat. Instead of a private detective, Eddie Valiant, he'd team up with a grizzled fat cop named Lucky who sounds like Pete from Goof Troop. But that's the thing, this show was all over the place. Some episodes would be light and funny and goofy, and other episodes would be darker and grittier, and it was a really strange mix. In some episodes his partner was Lucky, in other episodes it was this blonde lady named Miranda or something. In one episode he was a cop, and the next he'd be in this stupid green sweater living like a semi-normal life. Needless to say, it was a weird show, but as a movie, it'd probably still be terrible. I just picture a CGI Bobcat walking around with Alec Baldwin as Lucky. Nope, cancel it. Just make Roger Rabbit 2. Number 6, Reboot. Reboot was a cartoon show I watched on ABC Saturday mornings that was basically Tron if Tron wasn't 7 hours long and boring as a goldfish. Reboot took place inside of a computer, where characters would fight off viruses, hexadecimal, and megabyte. Yeah. But the real fun came when the showdown between good and evil was interrupted by the user starting a game, and the characters would have to use the mechanics of that game to beat the bad guy. That was by far the most entertaining aspect of the show. Oddly enough, this obscure show probably has the best chance of actually getting a movie since they just got a whole new series on Netflix last year. I think they should reboot Reboot with an animated film from Pixar. Just do a one and done kind of thing because I don't think we need any more than that. Number 5, Super Mario Brothers. In the 1990s, we were blessed from the heavens with the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. And yeah, I remember they also made a Super Mario Brothers movie. Oh yeah, look at that. Just like in the games. For years, Nintendo said they would only work with Disney on any Mario movie ideas. But then they sold the rights to Illumination, which is kind of like the anti-Disney. They're the ones responsible for Cash Grab, the movie. Though I guess it's better than Sony, which is apparently really close to happening. I've been wanting to see a good Super Mario Bros. Movie since I was a little kid, and I think you can do it as long as you have the right people behind the project. So here's my sort of half-baked pitch. First of all, I think it needs to be animated, and I think Illumination can make it look like it came right off of a Nintendo Switch. Next, I think it needs to be an origin story of why and how Mario and Luigi end up in the Mushroom Kingdom and go on their first adventure. Basically start at the beginning, a fish out of water adventure through the Mushroom Kingdom. Don't create a movie that requires the viewers to know what Super Mario Bros. Is. The movie needs to introduce people to these characters and build on their personalities in a way you can't do in the games. Luigi's arc could be based on him being a coward. Mario could be seeking purpose in life before he's tasked with saving the Mushroom Kingdom. Throw in a twist at the end that Peach wasn't kidnapped, she was captured while trying to save like a bunch of enslaved toads, and you kind of avoid that whole damsel in distress trope that's been played out to death, and you leave room open for the future for Mario Bros. 2. And not that Lost Levels crap, it's impossible. Anyway, that's my idea, so now let's do the Hollywood thing and give it to 6 new people who will rewrite it 12 times and make a movie. Number 4, Captain Planet. This might be the least likely on my list simply because of how cheesy the cartoon was. I don't know what the appetite for this movie really is. There was also a Funny or Die parody video of a modern day Captain Planet that was pretty funny, but rumors swirl that Leonardo DiCaprio has been lobbying studios for a chance to make a new Captain Planet live action film. And on paper at least it makes sense. With Marvel posting big wins at the box office, just about any superhero movie is bound to make a ton of money. And Captain Planet basically has a limitless skill set of all kinds of powers you can bring to life with CGI. Maybe set the movie years after the cartoon ended, all the rings have been lost, but then like a kid finds one, and so like that kid and his friends start looking for the other 4 so they can summon Captain Planet to help fight this bad guy who's doing a bad thing to the planet. And on that note, maybe have like a real environmental message instead of just bad guys pollute because they're bad guys. I think if you did that, you could have something. Number 3, Daria. MTV's Daria was a spin-off show based on the popular Beavis and Butthead side character Daria. She's kind of a nerdy outcast character who avoided the in crowd, barely tolerated her family, and mostly just liked to hang out with her artist friend Jane Lane. And while it seems like there wouldn't be much here to pull from for a full-length Hollywood movie, College Humor actually did a parody trailer for this a little while back in like 2013 starring Aubrey Plaza. This really felt like a solid premise. First of all, Aubrey Plaza is perfectly cast as Daria, though just about everybody else in this skit is wrong for their parts. Although the idea of a live-action movie that features Daria attending her high school reunion is pitch perfect. Throw in a soundtrack from the 90s/early 2000s, and you have a pretty cheap, easy-to-make, R-rated comedy that will probably do really well in theaters. I was thinking like Daria could be like really successful in both her business and personal life, but then she goes back to her hometown for her reunion and she's still the outcast somehow. And so she like spends the movie trying to figure out like why this town sucks the life energy out of her. And then at the end, she learns a valuable lesson that it's not her, everyone else sucks. I mean, if they can do it with that Dora the Explorer parody trailer, why not Daria? Number 2, Freakazoid. In this era of big blockbuster superhero movies, I'm surprised we haven't seen Freakazoid brought to the big screen, especially when you consider the success of Shazam and other comedy-centered superhero films. Freakazoid, for those of you who don't know, was an animated cartoon on the WB, which is a studio that owns DC films, and was executive produced by Steven Spielberg, who makes movies. Freakazoid is basically a mixture of the genie from Aladdin with like a kid-friendly version of Deadpool who like made jokes and parodies and pop culture references. Of course, you'd have to tweak the origin story since people understand how the internet works now, but it can be changed slightly and still stay true to the show. For instance, maybe Dexter's a little older, works as like an intern at like a big technology company that's doing experiments on this new type of VR that projects images directly into your brain. So they find out there's a flaw with the system and they discard it, so then Dexter finds it and brings it home because he never got a chance to play test it. He hooks it up to his computer, the cat does a thing or it walks over the keyboard, he presses delete, boom, he's Freakazoid. I would take as many of the fun elements from the show as I could and shove them all into this one movie. Although, there is a lot to draw from, as this was a fairly fleshed out world. You could get a few films out of it. Maybe have the first main villain be Candlejet, the Lobe. The first villain could be the Lobe. And if it does well, it could be part of like the DC Extended Universe, and then we could have a Six Flags ride named after him. And at Six Flags La Ronde, introducing Freakazoid's Freak Out, the world's tallest tango ride. Number 1, Gargoyles. I feel like this is a bit of a deep cut, but towards the end of Disney Afternoon's run, there was a darker, more mature cartoon show called Gargoyles. The basic premise was that gargoyles were real back in medieval Scotland. They lived in a castle, protected humanity at night, and turned to stone during the day. One day, the humans betray them and kill most of the clan, while the rest are magically cursed to stay in their stone sleep until, quote, the castle rises above the clouds, end quote. Which was basically their way of saying until hell freezes over. Fast forward a millennia, and a billionaire decides to relocate that castle to the top of his skyscraper, thus moving it above the clouds and awakening the gargoyles forever. This show was often favorably compared to Batman the Animated Series, and it was a pretty unique and interesting idea for a cartoon show at the time, which makes me think it's a perfect vehicle for a live-action, full-length film. Oddly enough, while writing this video, I discovered Jordan Peele recently pitched the idea of a Gargoyles movie to Disney about a year ago. So who knows, maybe someday we'll see all these 90s cartoons on the big screen in one form or another. Nope, this is a terrible idea. Abort video, shut it down, shutting it all down, guys. So that's my list. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as I release new videos every day for the next 25 days. We're halfway there, guys. Halfway. So until next time, keep being awesome.
Oh my god.
What?
What is he doing? What is he doing? Oh, that's a girl. But either way, what is she doing? This is inappropriate. You can't show this on your channel.
It looks more like Chuck Norris.